Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host Dakota, here with my co-host Jordan, and today we had a Figura Obscura drop. This is in stock, ready to ship out, and it is the Red Death. So Jordan, this is the first... Yes, this is the first Mythic Legion Obscura that has come out that you're deciding to get that I'm actually going to pass on. So I'm going to let you lead this podcast today. So
I love the sound of that. So, yeah, well, we saw the tease. Was that yesterday or 2 days ago? Was that yesterday?
I want to say that was just yesterday.
They showed just the clock, and I think you and I were talking, and you said something about it being Father Time or like a Sandman type thing, which made sense. Which I was like, well, it depends on what it looks like. And then saw it this morning, and yeah, Masque of the Red Death, I think is very cool. I'm glad right off the bat, you know, I'm interested because it's creepy and spooky and Halloween-y, so that's right up my alley. And I like that they're doing more of a literary thing, because I think the past ones, obviously they've adapted like I guess Headless Horseman, that's pulled from a literary thing, but this one seems a lot more, I don't know if I want to say niche, maybe?
I mean, it only lives within like literary stuff. Like Headless Horseman has been like adapted into like movies and cartoons and other things. Same with Krampus and Father Christmas, obviously. But yeah, this one is only from the story.
So obviously based on the Edgar Allan Poe story, which I know because I have a useless English degree that I paid money for, but naturally I was stoked because I love Edgar Allan Poe, and this is a really cool story. It's actually pretty short. If you haven't read it, or if you're listening and are intrigued by it, it's only like 5 pages. But it's probably one of his more popular ones. But essentially, yeah, there's like this ball and kind of iconic imagery of there's all these different colored rooms, and one's black and red, and there's the party goer who shows up who is dressed in the garb of basically a disease that's like ravaging the country, and all of the elites are in there, but the Red Death shows up. So
you didn't read the like Source Horseman page, right? You just actually know all that stuff?
I do know that. I actually reread the story just before we started recording this because I wanted to brush up on it, but it's a good one. And I think it's cool. I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that they're specifically, I mean, I glanced at the thing you sent, which I thought was cool that they do like, it looked like they recap the story and then also just do like a little bio on Poe and stuff, which I'd be curious to see the percentage of people that are like, want to get it because they know that, or just like, oh, this is cool looking. But I think either way, I think that plays really well into what makes Legions cool, which is like you don't necessarily need to know the source material. You can just be like,
I did see, I saw quite a few people in the Cabal today being like, I don't need it. I don't know what it is. I bought it. There's so many, like, that's probably like most of the people buying it have not read the story. I mean, maybe there's some English nerds like you that have read it, but I would think for the majority, it's just a cool looking figure.
Yeah, I think so too. And then it makes sense now with the clock. That's a pretty like important part of the story. It's like the clock chimes every hour, and so they describe that quite a bit. So I think that clock looks really cool.
Oh yeah,
and that's even just a cool accessory in and of itself. I mean, knowing how they do their stuff, I think that'll look really cool with a lot of different displays if you want. But then getting into the figure itself, you know, you got, of course, it's got the cloth goods that you can display it with, but then underneath they showed a lot of those shots of just the body itself, which one detail I think is cool because it does have the mask, and that's like a part of the story where they unmask him or it. But I saw that Jeremy said something about they're not going to show what is under the mask, so it's like if you order it, you know, then you can see what it looks like. So I think that's kind of a fun. I don't know. I think that's cool too.
I mean, what do you expect? Do you think it's going to be like you just take the mask off and it's just like a black skull
That's what
face?
I don't know. Well, basically, in like can I talk about the stories? Is a spoiler alert off after 180 years? I mean,
I think it's okay now.
It was published in 1842, so if you haven't read it by now, you know.
That's on you.
If you've been sitting on that one for 180 years. But yeah, it's like, because the idea is like they're sequestered in this like palace essentially to get away from the plague. It's all the rich and the elite, and they're trying to distract themselves. But of course, the plague finds its way to them. So it's like it's kind of like Poe, where it's very like more abstract. It's like you unmask it, and it's not really in the story like this is what he looks like when you unmask him. It's just like the Red Death had come to them. So I think it's it'll be interesting for me to see like what they do. I mean, maybe it will just be a skull head or something, but either way, I think that's kind of fun. And yeah, it's also cool because it's very not super described in the story. So I think it's a good one for them to start and just kind of take some artistic liberty with, and just kind of do their thing.
And they had mentioned that cool too in that Source Horseman article about how when they did others like Krampus and Headless Horseman, they have a lot of other like people have like put that image out there, and they can kind of draw from those types of things.
Yeah.
Where this one was like, they're like, here's this little portion of like what it looks like, and we had to just kind of expand off of that.
Yeah.
So I think that had to be pretty fun for them to be able to just kind of create what was in their mind's eye of what this character looked like off of a short description. So I think that was a cool touch too. Yeah,
because there have been different like adaptations or art over the years, but yeah, it's not like there is a center. I mean, yeah, like when you hear the Headless Horseman, most people are like, this is what he looks like,
Right.
So I think doing the Masque of the Red Death is sort of like you have that advantage of you can sort of interpret it the way you like. So, and I think whether, like you said, whether or not you're like, oh, I know the source material and I like it, it'll naturally, I think, fit in with a lot of different collections. Obviously, we were looking at before. Who was that? The video review? Yeah. I mean, just kind of showing a lot of different, like any Legion, you can pop and swap or use the cloak with somebody else, or even just the details on like the body. I think they're pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched the Dork Layer thing, I mean, I'm kind of honored that you came here first to see about the review. But actually go watch that one too, because he's got that figure in hand. But yeah, we were kind of, I mean, I watched through the whole thing. Jordan, I skipped through the like main points for him to see. But yeah, I mean, some cool parts that, even though I'm not going to get this figure necessarily, parts on him that are going to get reused later. He's, I think, the first one I can remember ever seeing with a hinge in the neck, kind of more like your typical Marvel Legend figure. So you're going to have better articulation there, which I think is cool and will be interesting to see later. The arms, even though they're single jointed, he was showing the range on those, and they're, I mean, not much. I mean, you couldn't get much more out of double jointed elbows. So I think that was a cool touch too, because it's not like a huge gripe of mine, but like Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions usually aren't as articulated as our Marvel Legends. So being able to see that you can get those arms and holding a sword with both hands type of look, I was pretty happy with that. I thought that was cool. So
yeah, and it's interesting to like. Do you think that's more like, I guess, tech or?
Yeah, and they've been kind of
moving forward, or they've been talking about.
They've been talking, because like with Sir Elijah and some of those knights, they have better articulation, and like it's not butterfly joints, but they're able to bring their shoulders in more, which they haven't been able to do. So things like that, I think, and they added the toe articulation and the ox crew, and they had said they haven't done it yet, but with the ox crew armor, I think there was a way to make it without like really interrupting any sculpt. They could have double jointed knees pretty easily. So they're more on the McFarlane side of, they're not going to sacrifice sculpt for articulation, but when it makes sense to add in the articulation, then they will. So yeah, I think that'll be kind of cool to see where that takes them down the line. But I mean, I'm pretty happy with how it is now, but it's just fun to see the improvements they keep trying to make. Even though they've got a good product, they're going to keep making it better.
Yeah.
So,
I think so.
Now, another thing I was thinking with this is every Figura Obscura, other than Sun Wukong, has had a retail release, which I think we're going to get with Sun Wukong. But what would they change with Red Death? Because usually it's just like a repaint, recolor type of thing.
Right.
What could they do here?
Well, I guess if I remember right in the story, I don't think he's I mean, it is the Red Death is the plague. I don't think he's necessarily described as like all red. It just says his or whatever the party goer is wearing is like splattered with blood or kind of like. So you could do a lot of people. I think other imagery has been more like a black type gear with like red on it. Okay. I don't know if they would change the cloth goods for that, or I mean, I guess with
probably. Like they did with Father Christmas, yeah,
and Headless Horseman too. Didn't he have different colored capes? So I could see people maybe liking that too, because like the red look, it does pop a lot, and I think adds some good color to your legions. But maybe some people would want it to be more like almost a Grim Reaper looking with like red blood spatters on it. So you could maybe just switch the color scheme, I would imagine. Okay. I think that would be different enough that people, because I could see some people wanting that maybe more than the all red, as I understand maybe that might not, fit. But
it doesn't speak to the people just wanting a Grim Reaper type look. But then we also have the other figures that are coming out that look more Grim Reaper, like classic Grim Reaper-ish. So... but I kind of sticking with the blood thing. I thought it was kind of cool that his fingers and like one of his hand is like kind of red stained from blood. And then you can have kind of the other hand that's not all red, but it's like the fingertips or like he clawed blood. So, and then the whole base is like a giant pool of blood too.
Yeah. We didn't talk about that. Is that something he like, I guess I couldn't really tell. Is that just like an accessory or would he like stand on that or?
I think he could stand on it. Let me grab a Legion. Yeah, they have peg holes in the bottom of their feet. So he could possibly port into it because I know that the clock is what ports into it. Like it's got 4
into
pegs.
The red?
So it's like coming out
cool.
of the clock.
I didn't notice that. That's sweet.
So I don't know if that would be the same peg holes that would fit into a Legion. I would kind of assume it would be. So then you could have him kind of standing over it or even like using your other like skeletons or whatever, just standing in a pool of blood. But they had mentioned that too, is this Figura Obscura kind of comes lighter on the accessories kind of. Like he doesn't have like weapons and he's got a dagger and a couple sets of hands. But they were like, since that's the case, we can put some of that like extra effort into this bigger 1/12 scale clock and blood base. So I think that's kind of a cool touch, which I think it makes sense with like Sun Wukong to have the extra face plates and heads and weapons, and that's fun. But I think it's also cool to have something that can kind of go across lines. And like if you just want a cool clock, this is a pretty cool clock.
Yeah.
Which I would assume would have to cost somebody like $25 if you were just going to buy that as like a Dio set.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and then they said also kind of it'll come with, I think, right, some like artwork and
the artwork is going to be similar to the others, where grab my Sun Wukong here. So when you kind of take the magnetic slipcover off, it's got the almost like a backdrop for the character behind it. So I think that one, I think it's the party goers are on the inside.
Okay.
And it's kind of I don't remember what the 7 deadly sins of like lust, greed, all that stuff. And then I thought there was also artwork of kind of the lights coming from the red room. But I can't remember exactly where the art is. If it's like the panels of the box are going to be the like stained glass, or if that's like the inside of the window packaging. But
yeah, I'm excited for the packaging on it. I mean, most, especially with the Legions, the way they do those.
And that's my favorite. Like I love that art.
Yeah.
Like I've got the poster and the box of Headless Horseman, same picture, but I like the art, so I got both.
You're a connoisseur.
I'm a connoisseur. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think it looks like it's going to be a cool especially the pop and swaps that Dork Lair did.
Mm-hmm.
Those are cool. I'm excited to see what people do with it. I'm excited you're getting it, Jordan.
I know. I
know.
You said you were proud of me, so
You're a strong collector.
That's the way. If they continue doing some literary stuff, I'm in. I mean, I'm just waiting for that for my my Legion's Ask Cthulhu sometime. So maybe someday.
I feel like they've got to be doing that at some point. Like that seems very them.
Yeah.
So
who knows?
Yeah. All right.
But yes, I'm very excited for this one. So I'm hopefully, if you get it. I think they even posted on their page the Masque of the Red Death short story to be like, or I thought I saw that posted somewhere, just like, hey, if you want to check the story out. So
I saw a few people in the Cabal sharing different, like there said like, here's a audio version on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They like it's only 20 minutes. Here's like a illustrated version of it, kind of comic book style.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got a different options to be able to read your story. But yeah, let us know if you're going to be getting this one. Tell us in the comments. Are you buying it now? Are you going to do some pop and swaps with it? What's your plans? Make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, stay strong.